Okay, good morning. We are continuing Sadichet, Tarovis Sadichet. We left off in the middle, or maybe 3/4 of Seif Bet. Seif Bet. So we just learned you have a pot, and we learned of min b'mino and min she'eno mino. In other words, you have a pot, and you have a mixture falls in of treif. Something treif falls in. And you know it's close to shishim, but you're not sure if it's 60 times the amount. It's for sure batel barov. And it's very possibly shishim. You're just not sure. So again, if it's a suffix deraisa, you go lechuma. Suffix derabanan, you go lekula. So min b'mino, we say deraisa, it's rov, and therefore you could be mekel. If it's she'eno mino, we say shishim, tam kickers deraisa. That's how we paskin. You bring the tam Rambam, and therefore it has suffix. You have to go lechumra. Okay, so now let's read the next case. This is the next piece is basically taken from the Rashba, from a Gemara. He uses a Gemara in Chulin, and it's a daf kuf, and it's so Rishonim Achronim discuss what he means and how far to go with it. So let's read. V'im nitarev b'mino. Now in the mixture you have some mino falls in, u'b'she'eno mino, and then you also have eno mino that's mixed in. V'nishpach, and then the whole thing falls out, it spills, so there's no way to check. I'm going to go back and explain. V'inyan she'en yecholin la'amod alav l'sha'aro. You can't measure it anymore because it all spilled. V'noda shahaya rubo, and you know that for sure there's rubo, as we said, rubo heter. So mimino rubo shaya rubo heter mimino. Its own mean, you know for sure it's rov. So rowing at she'eno mino ki'ilo eno. So you just pretend there's no eno mino. V'sha'ar mino rabba alav umevatlo, and all you have to worry about is mino is the rov, and it's mavatelit, and pashtus, everything becomes mutter. That's a little hard to understand. Let me explain it with an example. Let's say you have a pot of soup, a stew. So you have chunks of meat, and in there you have liquid and vegetables. And then a piece of treif meat falls in. So then, min b'mino would be the meat, and she'eno mino would be the vegetables and liquid. So the halacha is like this. Let's say you have, 50 pieces of beef. Then you have one piece of kosher beef. Then you have one piece of meat falls in, that's treif. You don't know if it's shishim of min b'mino, because not all pieces of meat are the same size. So that's why I just gave that example. But you know that there's more kosher meat versus treif meat, but you don't know if it's shishim or not, because not all pieces of meat are the same, and you know there's a lot. So it's close to shishim, you're not sure. So the halacha is, min b'mino, we're mekel. And if it's nishbach, it spills and you can't measure it anymore. So then, or it disappears, whatever. So then you have min b'mino, you know for sure it's rov. So now you had that one piece of treif meat, now doesn't treif up your entire stew. So and we're also assuming that you're not the parv or whatever, the vegetables and the liquid could be mitzaref to be mevatel shishim towards that treif meat that falls in. But anyways, you take the whole thing and you don't know if you have shishim of the piece of treif that falls in. So as long as you know for sure you have rov basar of kosher, that's mevatel and a din deraisa to that piece of meat, and therefore that's mevatel and it's kosher. And now it no longer treifs up the vegetables, and even the vegetables and the rota, the liquid, everything she'eno mino is kilo eno, and for the calculation, and now everything is kosher. So that's the pshat reading of the Shulchan Aruch and the Rama, who doesn't comment, and that's the psak of the Taz, And according to Psakim Mechuvos, he has a slew of Achronim. The majority of Achronim go with this. That even the vegetables are mutter. The Shach says that doesn't make sense because the treif piece of meat wasn't compared to the vegetables. It's she'eno mino, and there it might not be shishim. So he says, okay, you can eat the kosher pieces and the meat's okay, but the everything else and the meat, I guess you have to rinse off, and everything else is she'eno mino, and it's suffix of shishim, which is deraisa, and so therefore that you have to throw out. Chacham Azadam says it can be mekel b'hefs and meruba, but okay, that's the different opinions on the Shulchan Aruch. Okay, I think we'll go on. Gimel. Now, what are we? Oh, you know what? I just want to point out another halacha regarding this. We said shishim is deraisa for eno mino. What about, and so you have to be machmer if you're not sure. But what about if it's chicken or shar yisuri derabanan? So the shar yisuri derabanan, I think everyone says the shach says is mutter, but by oath he says it has the same halacha as meat for this. Chazal gave the same halacha for meat, and you have to, and it's considered. And if it's a suffix of shishim when it comes to chicken, we also have to be machmer.
What, the chicken is the same min as meat?
No. That if you have a suffix, if it's batel b'shishim or not, you don't have you have to be machmer. Sfeika d'oraisa l'chumra. Even though the same case, let's say you had pieces of kosher chicken and nevela chicken, and you're not sure if it's, it's batel barov, you're not sure if it's shishim. So normally we said, if you're not sure, then, and if it's a case of eno mino, so it should have been with vegetables. But anyways, if it's a case of eno mino, and you're not sure if it's batel b'shishim, then you have to be machmer, because it's a suffix deraisa. If you have treif chicken fall in with your vegetables, and it gets mixed together, and you're not sure if it's shishim. You know it's batel barov, you don't know if it's shishim. So we just learned, b'she'eno mino, if it's a suffix, unless you're positive it's shishim, you can't eat anything. You have to assume tam ke'ikr sveka deraisa l'chumra. But if so that's by a piece of meat from a cow. But if it's, wait a second, that's basar b'chalav. No, that's just talking about basar b'chalav. Okay, sorry, that's what I meant to say. You're right, I got thrown off. You're right. In the case of basar b'chalav, that's what it says. Okay, sorry. So that's the case where the one second. Okay, so the shach, one second. Okay, the shach is mekel, it's the taz is aser, and most say lakula as well with that issue.
When the isser is only isser derabanan.
When it's only isser derabanan, even if it's basar b'chalav with a chicken. Shkayach. Okay. Fine. Let me go on here. 1 second. Okay. Anyway, as the Taz and the Plati and others explain, you put them together with that case of a mixture of meat. Just to clarify, you have some meat that's kosher, some that's treif, and you have the vegetable, that case of min and eno mino altogether, because before the meat, the flavor of the treif piece of meat mixes with the vegetables, we say that flavor, the items together, mevatel it out, or the flavor together that would go into the vegetable, it first combines the meat with the meat, or it all happens simultaneously, but you never have that ta'am of isser, before it enters the vegetables, it already became batel, at least barov, with the ta'am of the heter piece of meat. So anyways, that's the explanation of the Shulchan Aruch. Fine, let's go on. Sorry about that. Gimel. What's this case that we just had in bet? It's when it's spilled and there's no way to measure it. But what if you have the pot in front of you, and you have that piece of treif meat falls in, or whatever the scenario is, you have a piece that falls in, that's aser, and the efshar lamod al shiuro. It's too hard for you to decide if it's batel b'shishim. Even though we're talking about any of these cases of an isser derabanan, it could be the food's an isser derabanan, it could be it's min b'mino. Any of these cases, you have to be machmer, because any case that's in front of you, theoretically, it's possible to measure it. It's just too difficult for you to measure it. So let's explain that the Shach brings the Ran. Everyone quotes the Ran. Basically, one of the explanations is: does the suffix start out when it's impossible to find out, or it's called chisaron yediah? You don't know, it's there, it's possible to find out, but it's too difficult for you to find out. And therefore, we don't call that a suffix in halacha. For sveikas, suffix darabanan lakula, we don't apply that. Now, the Ran explains really that's a din darabanan, because it is a suffix for you. But the problem is, one can turn everything into a suffix. And anytime you're not sure about something, you'll just say, well, I'm not sure, and then you'll call everything a suffix derabanan lakula. So the Chazal made basically a takana, anytime, or a rule, anytime that's in front of you, and it's possible to find out, we call that chisaron yediah, and you must check. If it's something that's impossible for anyone to find out, it's gone, it got taken away, then we still go by the din d'oraisa of suffix. The Aruch Shulchan adds that based on this, any case that's an unusual case, again, how to apply this is not for here, but any case that's not shchiach for it to happen, so then it's also, you could be lo gazru chazal on that type of a case. And he also points out, the Taz points this out, Aruch Shulchan, that any case that would be too difficult for rov b'nei adam can also, it can't be a private, we're not talking about a private case, but a general case, again, tzarachi and exactly how to apply it, but any case that's for everybody, it would be, we know it would be too difficult to find out, then it would be also called a suffix for halachic purposes. Let's say the Taz writes, anytime we say a case of einan bekin, so in other words, it's too hard for us to know. So we all establish that for us, it's too difficult to know. That's also called a proper suffix.
That's if the kid forces something into the pot, and you can't eat it. Something like that. Because you can't.
Right, you didn't know how much.
You don't know what he did.
Yeah, there's no way. Okay.
Right?
So daled. Good. Isser shenitbashelim heter. Now, if you have a piece of isser, it gets cooked with heter. Afilu makiro, v'hu shalim, v'zarko. You know which piece of meat that was. So it fell in there, it started to cook. You took it out right away. It's gone. Tzarich shishim keneged kol isser. You still need shishim keneged, right? For everything else to be mutter, to say it was batel, you need shishim of everything else keneged what fell in there, even though you took it out. Because in this time we don't know how much came out, and so therefore it's aser. Okay. Right, the Shach points this halacha applies even by Yisuri Derabanan, makes no difference. We're not sure how much came out, still. That's the halacha, you need shishim. Lefichach, hamavashal b'kederos iser. If you cook in something that the pot is an iser pot, it was used for iser, shehi bat yoma. It's within 24 hours of when it was used for iser. O tochav kaf shel iser. Or you use a treif spoon from a goy friend, and it was used within 24 hours, and you put it in. Beheta, you put it inside your kosher pot. Tzarich, inside your food, your stew. Tzarich shishim keneged kol kedera. So in the first case, if it's the kedera, you need shishim keneged the whole kedera. Or if it's the spoon, then it's keneged kol ma shetachav me'akaf. whatever part, wait, we learned this before, whatever part of the spoon gets inserted, that's the part that you need to be mevatel b'shishim. She'eino yodim kama balo, because we don't know how much came out. Bein shehem shocheres or eitz or matachet. So the material doesn't make a difference. Right? There's an opinion that says it does, but halacha we say it makes no difference what the material is.
Is that a plastic thing?
As far as I know, it applies to everything, except for perhaps glass. We'll discuss, and not for here because it's Shia and it's okay. Haga. Ubilvad shabalo retichat esh. So the Ramah just points out we're talking about when it's hot through fire, when it gets heated up. Kli rishon. Sha'az abli olechet b'kol kli. Because then if it's a kli rishon, then with the heat it goes throughout the entire kli, right? The thickness and all around, even up beyond the soup. Aval al yedei retichat melicha in aniva b'kli rak kedei klipa. But if it's only through extremely salty, so then we learned already, like salty she'eno nechal machmat malcho, so then we learned it's just kedei klipa. Now actually, the Ramah writes, let's see here. Right. The Shach points out, Yoreh is also just kedei klipa. Kavisha, if it's soaked, it's the entire, it goes all the way through. Then he says here, kedei klipa, that's by melicha with the klipa, that's by the kli. For a kli to be absorbed by melicha, it's only kedei klipa. But for the food itself, so the Ramah says kulo and the Shulchan Aruch says klipa, as he just points out. Ve'ein sarich l'sha'er rak kedei klipa. So if it's a kli, then you only have to worry about, if it only became through a flavor of basar or isser, whatever it is, through salting, so then it's only kedei klipa of the kli. V'yesh mi shemachmer b'kav shel matachet lahatrich shishim keneged kulo afilu lo yichnis ela miktzat. Some say that, we learned this also some say that only part of the spoon went in, then it's keneged the entire spoon, even the handle that's sticking out. Mishum decham miktzato cham kulo. Because since the bottom is hot, the heat transfers all the way up. Hagav and wagim kisvar rishona, but we don't hold like that last opinion. It's only by the portion of the spoon that actually goes in. Now, anytime this happens, that you get this mixture, and it's batel b'shishim, right? So we say everything in there in the pot's going to be kosher except im makirot tzarich lahasir misham afogav dekvarnit batel ta'amo b'shishim. But if you see that piece of treif or whatever is there, then you have to remove it. You can't just leave it there. That's still mamash avisser. Right? It doesn't ruin everything else, but it's batel b'shishim. But that piece is still aser. Ulachein, he adds, im. And by the way, the Gilyon Maharsha says you have to remove it. He believes it's midaraisa. Ulachein im nafal chalav. 1 second, Rachel. Im nafal. I don't know. We'll read chalev maybe first. If a piece of chalev falls in, l'tocha tavshel, but it's batel ta'amo b'shishim, and it's batel b'shishim, tzarich litain sham. No, it's milk. Okay, sorry. So it is chalev? Oh, it is chalev. Okay, so what's the case? Oh, okay, that might make more sense now. Okay, yeah, that does make more sense. So chalev, a piece of fat, and it melts in there. So, okay, I got it. So what do? The Ramah points out you can still take it out. Right now, while it's hot, it's all melted in there, right? We know when you have anytime you cook something, while it's hot, it's all one liquid. But then when you let it cool down, especially if you put cold water, that's its case, you put cold water or you put in the fridge or freezer, then it congeals, the fat floats to the top. So he says, you have to do that as well, because you're able to remove it. Tzarich litain shamayim tzonenim v'teva hachelev lahakpi, and it's normal for it to congeal. I don't think this happens to milk. Uletzuf lamala al hamayim, And so therefore it floats to the top, v'yasirenu misham, and then you can remove it. The mi'achar de'efshar lahasiro, have ki'ilu makiro, v'tzarich lahasiro misham. Since you're able to remove it, you have to remove it. Okay.
Even though it was Batel B'Shishim.
Even though it was Batel B'Shishim. If it wasn't Batel B'Shishim, everything is no good. And the machlokas on Hilchos Shabbos, how to remove it on Shabbos itself. So in order to avoid the issue, remove it with some of the heter juice with it. That would for sure avoid the question. Iser shenit batel b'kedera v'isiru misham. Now, you have a piece of meat, or let's see, a piece of iser. It becomes batel by the kedera, then you removed it misham. V'nafal kedera cheres, and now that same piece of meat that you removed fell into the next pot, right next to your klutz. You take it out, drop it into one, you take it out, then it drops into the next one. So, tzarich lachzor levatel b'shishim, keneged kulo. Again, you have to do this all over again, it has to be 100%. V'chen le'olam. If it's that piece of meat, then it continues on and on and on.
Even though each time we're saying that it's Batel, but it's still
Right. Even so, the ta'am, part of the ta'am came out, and whatever is batel, it still retains whatever it is. It still retains what it is, and okay, nothing went in there to make it less powerful. Aval im nafala kedera harishona shtei pa'amim. So this we had before, but if it's the exact same piece of meat that fell into the pot twice, so the Rama writes ein sarich rak shishim echad kenegdo. But we learned over there in Sadi Dalet, it's a machlokas between Shulchan Aruch and Rama, if you need one or double to go with that. Okay. Now, they also, post can point out, obviously we're talking about anytime you have a mixture and it's not batel b'shishim, I think it's obvious, it doesn't help to remove it. Because if a tray piece of meat falls in there and it wasn't batel b'shishim, then it's already cooking, it's already atzlarbo, it already asers everything, and it doesn't help to remove it. What? Min b'she'eno mino, and min b'mino on a level derabanan. Unless it's a suffix and maybe it was shishim, that's the other case. Okay, hey. Im yadua kamu hu ha'isr kegon kaf chadasha o she'eno bat yoma shenir ba ubala kazayit chelev. Now, if you're not sure, if you have a brand new spoon, if you do know, if you have a brand new spoon, or it's after 24 hours, so we hold it's after 24 hours becomes tam lifkam. So basically you're dealing with an older spoon, more than 24 hours, or brand new, and you know how much iser got in there. Shenir ba'ubala kazayit chelev, let's say you used it for only one kazayit of chelev. So it doesn't matter how big your spoon is, even if your spoon is more than a kazayit, since only a kazayit of chelev got in there, that's all you have to worry about. Haga. If you have on a day one, if you have on a new kli, that's what I'm going to say, a new spoon, eno ben yomo, then, and you only have a kazayit of iser, we don't say chanan to the whole spoon. Afilu im ni arobo iser. Even if you used it to stir with it, it makes no difference. Aval, this the Shulchan Aruch and the Rama is machmer. Kaf yeshana ubat yoma misharim bekula. We do say, if it was used, we do say that kazayit of chelev went through the entire spoon, and the whole spoon does become chanan. But you're talking about an iser. Again, this would apply to the Rama for basar bach. Wait, let's keep reading. Never mind. The koma shabala nasa iser v'loyad inan kama bala. Because once it gets in there, we don't know how much gets in, gets out. But it does have the din of chanan for the kli in such a case. V'yesh misha omer shagam bezo ein tzarich ela shishim levatel hakazayit shabala. And some say no, it only goes even if it is a ben yomo, and you know that it only absorbed a kazayit of chelev. You only have to worry about the kazayit. V'asvara rishona ikar. And this first, and the Svar Rishona is the main opinion. Gabe tipas chala shenafla ala kadera, and if you have a drop of milk, I think, that falls on the kadera, v'yesh she'enan mechalkin bin kaf yashan lechadash, rak bein kli cheres l'shar kelim. V'omrim de bekli cheres, the efshar lahafri de isra al yedei hagala, arminan hakli nasa nevela. Aval lo b'shar kelim v'tov lachush lechumra. So the Rama says, in the first case, it's good to be machmer by if your spoon or your kli would be a kli earthenware. And there we would say, even if it's a brand new cheres and a kazait of chalev mixes in, then that's the case what it would be. We would say chanan on a kli in that case, even if it was a new kli. I think we'll stop. Okay, just to clarify, what's the difference between the first case of a brand new spoon versus an old spoon, a used spoon, within 24 hours? If it's a brand new spoon, we look at the kli as it's completely empty, and there's nothing in there but this kazait of chalev or chalav. So therefore, it's not. We don't say chanan on an empty spoon because we don't say a chanan with the spoon itself. So you only have a kazayit of chalav in there, and that's all that's going to be aser. The case where it's a kaf yeshana, it's used, so the entire spoon is filled with basar, kosher meat. It's filled. It's not empty. It's filled with food, and then we can say chanan. So then, if you have a kazayit of chalav that mixes in there, so then we say chanan on the entire portion of food that's within the spoon. We don't say chanan directly to pots and silverware and spoons itself, but we do say chanan to the stuff that's balua within. So that's the difference. And just to clarify, the whole seif, are we talking about, the word is chet lamed vet. Is it chalev or is it chalav? So according to the Shulchan Aruch, it's chalav dafka, because he only has this issue of chanan by basar b'chalav. According to the Rama and Ashkenazim, it would be either chalev or chalav. It would apply either way. You can read it either way.